Hi, and welcome to Color Your Home Happy. I'm Justine, founder and creative mind behind Rainbow Shaker, a colorful interior design studio in London. My goal is to spread joy and happiness through the design of cheerful interiors. If, like me, you think that we need a colorful bubble to escape the daily gloom, then this podcast is definitely for you. Each episode, I will be welcoming well-known guests from various colorful backgrounds. You won't find us speaking about the right way to use colors. In this podcast, I want to help you trust your intuition and give you all the confidence you need when designing interiors full of dopamine. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Color Your Home Happy. I'm Justine, your vibrant host and colorful interior designer at Rainbow Shaker. Today, we're crossing the channel to dive into the magic of tapestry, upholstery, and upcycling with Marine Lesniewski from Renée Mobilier Particulier, a lively tapestry and design studio in Paris. Hi Marine, how are you?
Fine, and you, Justine?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for being here on this podcast. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your journey into tapestry and upholstery?
Of course. I started working as an upholsterer 3 years ago after graduating from l'École Boulle in Paris. Before that, I was working in fashion design as fashion designer in a small brand in Paris. Even if I always want to be a fashion designer, I quickly realized that it was not for me. After 2 years in that small company, I decided to quit and find my own way. I asked my best friend, also named Marine, to become my partner, and we created a concept store online about second-hand furniture, vintage tableware, and decoration. It was called Renée Recycle to show how it's easy to furnish our interior with vintage objects and old furniture. We found lots of chairs and armchairs in flea markets in the north of France, the place where we grew up.
So what led you to go into flea markets and upcycling?
I think I've always liked working with second-hand materials because they have their history and their own constraints. I think it's a good starting point. When I was in design school, we all went to get our material from flea markets or Emmaüs in France because it was cheap and also because we found a lot of treasure. I think as a creative process, make something new out of something old, like an eternal restart.
Especially nowadays, I don't think producing something new makes sense anymore. And we have so many things from like the 60s, the 70s, 80s that have so much soul. And also because it's a renewal of styles. So that's how you started Renée Recycle, which in English means Renée Recycle. And why did you think of the name Renée? Because you're both called Marine.
Yes. But Marine's shop was already taken. So we decided to call it Renée because of the play of word with Renée, like rebirth and restart. And also because we like this French name Renée, like an old grandmother. And it's also the name of the great grandmother of Marine.
So the other Marine that you founded Renée Recycle with, was she also an upholsterer or was she a designer?
We were both fashion designers. She's working now in digital marketing in Bordeaux. And now I focus on upholstery and craftsmanship. Then I found Renée Mobilier Particulier alone.
What's different from Renée Mobilier Particulier to Renée Recycle?
We created Renée Recycle in 2016 to promote second-hand in interior design, to show that it's possible to buy beautiful furniture, unusual tableware, and most of the time made in France. So it's all about second-hand, but not really craftsmanship and upholstery. It was more about vintage atmosphere and tableware. Then I decided to focus and learn more about craftsmanship, especially in upholstery. So I go back to school and learn how to make really old process with armchair and chair and stool. After graduated, I opened a workshop in Paris. I receive customers who want to give a new identity to their old armchair. And I also sell lots of chair with patchwork and with something extra, the Renée's touch, with lots of color and pattern. I really want to give a second chance to that kind of furniture to make it unique.
What about your relationship to color? Did you grow up in a very colorful environment?
Yes, my parents decorate their house with lots of color and mix and match print in the wallpaper, and there is lots of cement tile on the floor. Everything is mixing perfectly with lots of color and print.
Is there any other elements that makes Renée Mobilier Particulier even more unique?
I think it's unique because each piece of fabric is coming from ends of fabric rolls or waste. I collect and create pattern with it. I love working with color chart and finding the craziest color combination. And because I also work with sample in the workshop, it's always unique and a new way of expression.
As you said, we are talking a lot about upcycling, which is a way to reuse objects or items that have been discarded. But you also have overcycling, or in French, surcyclage, which is to create something from your own production waste. So you have a actually double commitment to upcycling and overcycling.
Yes, because I want to make it something bigger. I decided to contact a big brand who create fabric and collect their waste and their end of fabric rolls. It was the first time I tried to make furniture by myself. I tried to make a woven screen and call it Totem because it's a collection of woven screen made by end of fabric rolls. The link is always the fabric because it also reminds me the way that fabric is created.
You recreate a woven pattern from a woven fabric. So
Yes.
It's like zoom in, zoom out.
In the workshop, I'm surrounded by fabric everywhere and there is lots of color and potential mix of color. All day I watch color charts. Sometimes I mix some stuff in my head and then make it on paper and then on fabric.
So, and are you still also getting inspired by fashion?
Yes, of course. And what I see everywhere around us, I think most of the time with pattern. I remember that in the north of France, there is lots of work with brick on the wall and there is lots of pattern. I'm happy to think that all the pattern I see in the Totem collection is coming from that.
I remember that I also saw your design on Maison du Monde, right?
Yes, because I love working with fabric and mixing texture and print. I contacted this huge brand Maison du Monde 2 years ago to create a collection with their defective furniture and all the damaged furniture returned by customers. Because I wanted to work with big brands to show it's possible to touch lots of customers in France. So I started collecting velvet curtain, cushion and rugs from their collection and composing different pattern with material and fabric, starting creating patchwork with the velvet curtain and painting colored print on stool. And then the collection of 80 pieces was born. And it was really cool because it was part of the design week in Paris. So I was really proud that it touched lots of people.
I think it's a huge commitment because it's a lot of work and also a big step forward, as you said, because Maison du Monde is renowned internationally. So it's really nice to be working with a big brand, showing that some of them at least wants to commit, offer something very unique and also eco-friendly, sustainable. And your design were also very colorful. It was not like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing for everyone and go for the general taste. You really went into bold designs, bold patterns and colors.
They trust a small designer like me, and it's really cool to have lots of power to do something in that brand.
I think in France, there is a lot more commitment and actions
towards sustainability, upcycling, and I would say in the UK for the last 2 years I've been here, because there are a lot of cooperatives, there are lots of things that are being done for that. And I think a lot of people that have more fuel like yourself to just disrupt the system and just go with it and see how it goes. Here in the UK, there is some upcycling, but mostly into the DIYs in terms of materials, like reusing waste is not such a big thing apart from the upcycled plastic for the countertop. I heard that some time ago people were reusing from school gym and they were reusing for homes. But here it's really more costly to reuse than to buy something new. And it's generally the case actually for some things. But then I think if not a lot of people are doing these actions, then that's why the price is so high. Like if a lot of people were more engaged into upcycling and overcycling, then the prices would be affordable.
I think in France it's starting like that with small idea and then lots of change coming. Even in France, we are used to work with recycled raw material. People always think that it has to be cheaper because it's waste and it was reused. Also because it's not the same distribution channel. We have to think about it and it takes time.
Do you have any examples of projects where you used a lot of different color combination?
3 years ago, I have been hired from a commercial customer. He wanted to have 15 folding chairs, which I hunt on Le Bon Coin, and I proposed different type of orange. They immediately asked for it because it was bold.
You were saying that it was actually like kind of a bureaucratic project, so they must have been really surprised by this association of oranges. When you think of town hall, you think of old offices.
Yes, and I think that's why they asked for something new, so it was cool.
Do you think that in France, or maybe more in Paris, people are more wary or afraid of bold colors?
I'm not sure, but obviously English people are more famous for color combination and bold design. I think in Paris it's quite common to have multicolored interior, but for now the trend is white and off-white. I made lots of chair and armchair and the sofa white.
If you'd spill anything on it, I would be really afraid.
And I think it's a trend and trends go and come back, but I'm not sure French is really famous for mixing color.
Every time I'm traveling to Paris, it's funny because I always wear like bold colors like this and mixing a lot of patterns and really bright thing. And people never talk to me in French, but they always come to me and start speaking in English. When I'm at a cafe or a restaurant, they treat me like a tourist because they think I don't understand. And I'm like, no, I'm French, actually. So, like, the difference I see is in the UK, people are maybe less afraid to experiment and they can mix and match every patterns and colors. If it works, then great. If it doesn't, then they redo it again. That's fine. In France, we are a bit afraid of making mistakes. This is one thing that is making people more reluctant about using bright colors, mixing patterns. I think lots of people in France would like to use more colors, or maybe in their Instagram feed, they like a lot of things very bright and very colorful. And they would like to try, but they're a bit reluctant to do it.
Totally agree.
When using colors, intuition and emotion is a big thing, because then you really have to trust yourself and to listen to yourself in the design process. And I think that's also why you have customers coming to you, because you also work with instinct and with your emotion.
Yes, and it's really an honor when customers trust me for a pattern or for making color in their interior. I have the feeling that I succeed something, and it's a
small victory.
Yes, I love watching all the color and make some combination. And I think you immediately realize one color is better next to another, and it's starting like that.
Like last time when we were selecting the fabric for benches, I saw all your samples and I was like, oh, what if we do all the benches like another color to have a rainbow bench? Because all of those looked so good.
And matching together.
Yeah, and maybe next time. Also, depending on the fabric you're using, for example, if it's velvet or if it's leather or another type of fabric, it's going to reflect the light differently. And so you can have different colors and then play with this reaction to light.
Especially with the velvet, there is in one velvet, for example, pink, there is lots of light in it. So you can have dark pink and light pink. It's really beautiful.
And do you have any examples of customers that came to you, were a bit worried about colors or patterns and ended out after talking with you, completely changing their mind and going all in?
Yes, I have a lot of examples, and it's always starting with a kind of shy feeling to mix color. And then we talk about their interior, the color of the rug, the color of the curtain. And they start to understand that it's possible and it's not weird to mix color, especially with pattern. And it's easy to make transition between the color, something more light and then dark and some contrast. It happens all the time. They don't have especially an idea of what they want, but when we watch together the chart of color, we try to create something new, and then they decide to take the step.
Do you have a specific project in mind?
So last Saturday, I met a couple. Both of them want to recover a folding chair, one with simple fabric like velvet, simple color like white or I don't know, red. And the woman wants to try something new and love a pattern with a wave. When I show the color chart to the husband, by himself, he selects 3 different pink and try to compose the gradation. Finally, they choose that combination of pink.
You help them see the light.
Yes. Yes, it's a victory, like you said.
Pink is often associated with females or like Barbie or stuff like this. And then people are like, oh, pink is just for women. And actually, pink has been created for men originally, and now it shifted. It's nice to see a man going directly to pink because it's just a color like any other color. It doesn't have any social constraints. He went directly, like trusting his guts and his emotions to the pink. It's really nice to see that. It's always really nice to see the impact of colors and patterns when you bring it into a surrounding, and the people that are using the space are completely changed after. They're more motivated or they're happier, in fact.
If you bring back to life all furniture, and the combination of color make you really happy.
So I worked with a client who lost his mom a few years ago, and it was a big loss for him. He kept all of his mom's belongings, like most of them, and he had trouble giving them away. So what we did was we gathered them all and we did like kind of an inventory. For some of them, the one that have the most memories, what I did was give them a second life. I put some wallpapers or paint on some of them. I understand that vintage furniture, you don't want to change them or to have colors or anything on it because you don't want to match them. But most of them were kind of damaged and weren't being used. You wanted to throw them away. So it was best to give them a little twist. What I also did was I wanted to use one of his storage that was used in his old room as a child. And I cut the back of the storage and placed it in front of a passageway, which led to a small closet. And it was like every time you opened the storage, you went into it and into the closet. So it was like a hidden passageway. I called it the Narnia door. You can always think of quirky ways to give them a new life, and then people love them even more. Is there any challenges that you face on a day-to-day in upholstery or upcycling?
Most of the time, it's time. Make quality thing and thing well. Also, people think that raw material is cheapest, and it's not. For the moment, I quite love my job.
And in terms of creating something new, like for example, with the Totem collection, did you have any challenges creating the collection?
Because it was the first time I create furniture entirely. I think I almost made it in 1 year. The time to collect all the things, to make some collaboration with brand of fabric, to understand what customer needs. It was really, really a long process, but I'm really happy with the result. So I think it's always good to know that you really have to trust our vision. It's easy to know what you like or what you dislike, but most of the time you don't know exactly where you are going, but if you trust yourself and your skill, you can go through and love the result.
But sometimes you can make mistakes, right?
I do a lot. I start again, I cut fabric and then realize that it's the wrong direction, then redraw the pattern and cut the fabric. And finally, it's okay, but yes, it takes time. And we really have to take that time to make something new, something innovative and process.
Do you think that making mistakes can be a waste of time, or is there something that you can take from this?
I think you can always take from this, because as I think I made everything twice or more, so it's a waste of time, but I think we learn like that, especially when you start a new job, because I start upholstery like 3 or 4 years ago. You always learn something new. It's always like that.
Sometimes you're trying to find your ways and making like kind of a mistake or something that doesn't go as planned, and then it brings you another idea or it creates another pattern.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah, sometimes it can be happy coincidence, sometimes it can be waste of time. Yeah. Marine, would you have any recommendation for DIY projects or quick fixes that you could give to our listeners?
During the lockdown, for Renée, I think with Marine, both of us were at home and we make small do-it-yourself video on painting on furniture or a mirror or something. It was cool to do, so you can see it on that channel on YouTube.
Reupholstering a chair is hard, but maybe you can have some quick fixes that you can still do, or small things that you can work on to bring a chair to life again.
Not on video on YouTube, but I can sure make a future video about that, doing a workshop or something, because I really want to show the craftsmanship and there is lots of things to learn. So
here in the UK, there are a lot of different interior design shows. I was also on one on the Big Interiors Battle, but I didn't do any upholstery. But for example, we see people are doing upholstery, either they used to do it or they do it for the first time, literally on TV, and it sometimes doesn't end well. Or they're like trying to paint fabric with a paint that is not for fabric. There are some rules and ways to do it, I think. We're coming to the end of our episode. Do you have any final advice?
I would say that you should not put too many barriers to yourself, because I think trends come and go. And even if we all have an eye on what's happening on Pinterest, it's important to develop your own identity and find our own inspiration, because I think it's all around us. The color of the sky, the brick pattern on the wall, the building. And I think the most important is to take time to look around us.
How could the listeners contact you?
They can contact me by my website or Instagram, Renée Mobilier Particulier.
Simple, straight to the point. There is an e-shop, so you can also buy the beautiful creation of Marine. Or if you want something bespoke, you can just send her an email. Well, thank you very much, Marine, for being here with me today, and also for doing the podcast. And like two French people talking entirely in English.
Thank you, Justine, and thanks to understand my English.
It was a pleasure. So thank you also to the listeners. See you next time for another colorful episode on Color Your Home Happy. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, don't hesitate to subscribe, rate, or review on the different listening platforms. To say hello and get all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at rainbow.shaker. And if you want to check out my services, you can go to my website, www.rainbowshaker.com. Thanks again, and I wish you all a very colorful day. See you next time!